Trevor Connelly is an uberly talented player in the 2024 draft, but does have some risk. Sam McGilligan joins to profile the forward.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at The Reef. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch this on YouTube as well. And today, good friend Sam McGilligan joins he does stuff at Scout. She's on Puck Preps. You know Sam. Sam's the best. He's the one who makes our good friend Scout look good, both physically and mentally. Anyway, poor Scout taking strays. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Trevor Connelly. We're going to be discussing his what makes him intriguing. We're going to be talking about kind of some of the off ice issues and how that's going to affect his draft. And then we'll get to see what Sam's thoughts on kind of the mid first round is as well. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And now we are joined by the man who makes Will Scouch look good, Sam McGilligan. How's it going, buddy?
It's great now. Ooh, that was disgusting. How are you?
Not too bad. We're going to be talking about one of the most interesting prospects in the draft when you combine the skill, which is off the charts, but there are some questions. So if you don't know who we're talking about, we're going to be talking about one Trevor Connelly. If you don't know who Trevor Connelly is, he is a 6 foot, 156 pound forward playing for Tri-City in the USHL. 52 games this year, had 31 goals, 47 assists, 240 shots on goal. And Sam, I ask everybody, what makes Connelly such an intriguing prospect in this year's draft?
One of the best skill and skating combinations, just point blank. That's it. There's no sugarcoating. You don't need to go into more details than that. It is as simple as he has some of the best hands in the draft. He's one of the best skaters in the draft. He's just one of the best attackers in the draft. He's one of those 4 or 5 guys every year that when you watch the highlight reels, even the people who don't follow draft at all are going to look at him and go yo, that boy is different. It's that simple with him.
I mean, we'll talk more about the strengths and weaknesses and everything with him, but we do have to address, right, there is a lot of baggage there. And The Athletic did a really good article kind of profiling it. I think it was around January or February. He's bounced around teams, didn't make NTTP because of it. This is something teams are going to have to kind of weigh the pros and cons. And I think, it's not to say that there isn't every draft prospect isn't squeaky clean and there could be maturity issues, whatever you want to call it. This is something teams are going to have to weigh, right?
So about Connelly and his supposed issues away from the ice, I mean, the Athletic article completely summarized with journalistic integrity that there is issues from multiple years dating back. There are people out there who will say that he's turned a new leaf. There are people out there who will argue against that. I'm not the type of person who's going to know the true answer to this type of stuff. Teams will do their due diligence. Each team will evaluate him however they choose. Some kind of in hockey, it's hockey. Some might just forego it entirely or not care. Others might see a genuine reclamation project there. And for all we know, I mean, maybe he has taken a lot of personal growth and that he actually is ready to step into the NHL as a professional and a responsible adult who's learned from mistakes in the past. It's hard to make definitive statements on it right now. But the idea that it's not a concern is a little it's absolutely something that everyone has to be concerned about. Whatever team makes this selection is going to have some level of public blowback just because how it is.
Yeah, so you and I are going to talk about the on ice product because we're just two bearded whites with microphones. So we don't know the specifics. Have never talked to the kid, nothing like that. So we're going to focus on the on ice and what he would potentially bring. Just keep that kind of nugget in the back of your head. Is there's going to be this is something that does kind of loom over him. So you talk about him as being one of the best skaters, one of the best combos, like kind of skaters and players in the draft. So. I know, 6 foot. I'm not sure the weight, how correct that is, but why are we not talking about him as a potential top 5 pick then with that type of skill level?
Well, the biggest reason is, his play this year. He didn't play like a top 5 caliber pick with consistency, but the idea that he showed the signs of a top 5 caliber player was there all year. He's been highly touted for years. I mean, he was a premier. It was a big deal when he didn't make the NTDP because it was like, oh, that's one of the best Americans of that year not making the team. That's quite shocking. He is a relentless force of pressure. Like, he's so good away from the puck in terms of applying forechecking pressure and just making players handle the puck and be uncomfortable. And he will snatch that puck every chance he get and turn play around super fast. But when you're watching him, for the most part, he reminds me mostly of another USHL player a few years ago who was Cole Sillinger. Cole Sillinger, when he played in the USHL,
good player.
Yes, he was. In fact, like, it was night and day how much of a difference he jumped right into the NHL right away, and he didn't look out of place. But if you watch some of I can't remember if Sioux Falls or Sioux City now, but he just didn't want to play with his teammates or like use them properly. He played very selfishly. He missed lots of open passes. He did a lot of random things just to do it, but the skill and the shot and all of the top tier weapons showed themselves in resounding form. And you could just look at him and be like, well, I can see how this works out. With Connelly on Tri-City this year, it's kind of the same deal. He really didn't play off of his teammates as well as he could have. I had seen Connelly before this year. I had seen Trevor Connelly play last year. I saw him at the Holinka development camp. I caught him in other various games beforehand, but I didn't really get too detailed in with him back then. At the Holinka development camp, he played with Max Swanson and Colin Frank, and they were, without question, bar none, no debate, the best line at that tournament. And it was Connelly who was the reason why, because he trusted both of those guys. He played off of them well. He was a play driver in the pure sense. The competition level is obviously nowhere near as high as like a regular USHL game. Most players who are at that tournament didn't have USHL experience. The ones who did, they dominate at events like that to try and make the Holinka roster. But with Connelly, it was even a level above the rest who were good. Like, he was such a clear star. I did that camp the year before. I'm going to be doing that camp soon in the future as well. Connelly is without question the best player I saw there. And that included Quentin Musty. That included, there were multiple high-end players who went there. Connelly was the best I ever saw there. He is incredible when everything is on his game. He does have fantastic passing vision. He works give and goes amazingly. Every tool you want in a transitional monster, but he's not shy. He's not a scared player. He's not one of those open ice skill dangly boys who's like scared. Like, he will play grimy. He will play gross. It's not his personal preference at the start of any round, but it is exactly how the best of his game kind of comes along, is when this is all kind of clicking in sync. The idea that there are legitimate concerns about him not being able to play with his teammates if they're not on the same wavelength as him is a legitimate concern. Like, that, how can you say it's not a concern? Because you want to see guys who want to be bus drivers, not guys who want to go 1v5 the other team every time they get the puck. But at the same time, I always kind of default back, especially with players in this scenario. There's always 3 or 4 every draft where they're just so talented, and they're also 18, 17 years old. If I was 17, 18 years old, I would also want to be this good at the game and just go out there and have fun. And if I you got to make fun with how you can. You want to use your talent the way you can. You want to learn how to just be the guy and what you can get away with. Like, there's advantages to playing like this if it gets cut out after this year, which I imagine it will, right? Like, he's moving on to NCAA. Let me really quickly check which school he's going to.
He's going to Providence. So he'll be one more year in the USHL, and then he should start Providence in the 25-26 season. So he's going to a good school. Like that's hockey school. Like, you're going to, he's not like he's going to, Podunk, university. Like, he's going to a good hockey school. He's going to be playing against good competition night in, night out. All right, before we continue with Sam, we talk about Connelly, his development and timeline, and then we talk about the mid-first round. Just need to take a quick break. No I in team, but there is one in Indeed. That's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They've streamlined hiring with powerful tools that help you find match candidates. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. So join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So what do you think is, as he kind of moves on, like, we know he needs to mature his game, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think he needs to continue to work on so he can kind of hit that next level?
I think the most obvious thing for Connelly to work on is just getting involved and playing off of his teammates more. The biggest reason for this is because, as talented as he is, the best first line play drivers and like top 6 stars in the league, the guys who like are the reason their line are so sick, typically were doing what he's doing in terms of just dominating everyone who comes in their way. And they were also always elevating their teammates and always trying to, even when they weren't, like, every time Macklin Celebrini is out there on the ice last year with the Chicago Steel, and he was playing with someone who wasn't Jaden Perron, sometimes even with Jaden Perron, who was a genius player himself, Celebrini was just doing things that the other guys weren't seeing. But that didn't stop him from constantly trying to get everybody involved. He never was like, all right, I'm just going to 1v5 every single time I touch the puck, right? Like, that was just never his game. And that's why we see him as such a easy pick at first. Even though there's another player in the draft who has a higher offensive ceiling, who has an argument for first. Celebrini likely to go first just because he's so unbelievably consistent with how he impacts the game and elevates his line. Connelly doesn't do that. And it's not something that you can just like learn at the same time. It's obviously something I see in his game as possible to be developed, and I've seen evidence of it in the past. But going to do that at the Holinka camp versus doing it in the NCAA are two different stories. The biggest question is, and I think you'll see it the most over the next few years, is how much does he start to click in with his lines? Personally, I don't think it's that big of an issue. This is where I guess we can start to mention the off-ice stuff again, not the details of it, but typically it requires a type of person. It's about the character of the player. How willing are they to separate themselves from their ego and work in with the system? These aren't comments that I can make about Connelly, but whenever you have a player who has questionable character, these are usually the ways that they can manifest, how it limits them from reaching their ceiling.
I think, though, like, the hope is like going to play college hockey, which, especially compared to juniors hockey, it tends to be more structured and stuff. And maybe this is kind of the best thing for him, where it's like,
I agree.
Like you said, your kid off to you send a kid off to military school. We're sending Connelly off to military school here. But like we see, like, it's much more defensive. It's, you're playing against older kids most of the time. Like, focusing on those details of the game. And I think maybe just that part of it, and being part of a college environment, right, it could be one of those things where maybe this is kind of kind of helps him in that step in that involvement. So with him going to school, expecting another year in the USHL, going to school, what type of timeline are we talking about if everything kind of starts to click for him? Because again, he is an uber, we cannot stress this enough. He's an uber talented player. We know he's going to have to get stronger, bigger, and he'll be able to do that at college. But are we looking a 1 and done, 2 and done? What are you kind of expecting?
I could see him being a 2 and done type of player. If everything goes right, he's probably a 2 and done type of player, but he would probably also benefit from a year in the AHL. I'm also more cautious with development in general.
Yep.
If a team
Sam's like, if they're under 30, I don't want him on my
exactly.
team.
Like, what do you? If you're not 52 years old, what are you doing in the NHL?
Joe Thornton's still got plenty of years left, baby.
Exactly. I guess the major way of evaluating him is going to be what if San Jose has spots on the wing in 2 years from now, not really any major competition, which isn't the case based on the prospect pool, and that he would be the youngest player entering the pool if they take him this summer. It most likely I would just go to the 2 years and a year in the AHL kind of ordeal. I feel like that's probably the way to go, because then in year 4 he comes in and he's an impact player right away, and then it's all progression from there. But him making the NHL in 2 years would not surprise me. And he's one of the few that have all the talent that if someone he said he's a 1 and done, it's like, oh man, that Providence season turned everything around. He feels like the gut instinct for a player where it's like, if he goes past 10, he could be the winner of the draft. Where it's like, it's just like, you don't get guys like him falling through the draft very often.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Cole Caulfield. I don't want to compare, but you're a Habs fan, right?
Fair.
Cole Caulfield sliding because he's a small boy who scores goals. Definitely not the off-ice issues, but right, if you redo that draft, Cole Caulfield's not going, in the teens where he went to exactly. Montreal, and Montreal fans are laughing every day because they have Cole Caulfield scoring 6 goals. This could be one of those things where, I feel like there's 2 paths here, right? Where Connelly kind of figures off the ice issue, all of that stuff. He kind of learns from his experiences. I think he kind of goes in the teens just because of that. And then he goes on, has a sick career, or he never can kind of things just never click for him. And he's kind of maybe one of those players where you just always have that what if type of question with him, right?
Yeah. I think that's the perfect description of it. And because of that, the spectrum is so wide. Connelly not being an NHL player is also entirely possible for these types of things. Sometimes players do not develop as well as you want after 18. It's not a linear thing. Sometimes players stagnate very quickly because they don't understand. In theory, the improvement is there and they have the means to do it, but whether they are fully committed to it, whether they agree with what the coaching staff are telling them, whether they have people in their own personal circle who are like, nah, man, you're fine. I don't get what they're saying. Your coaches are there's lots of situations behind the scenes that I've learned and heard stories about over the years where I'm like, oh, that's what happened. That explains a lot, because I was like, that guy was pretty good. What
happened?
Yeah. And character is a big kind of, it's synonymous with development, but it's also, it's such a blanket statement that it's not really useful almost to say something like that, because it can be so nuanced. You can be a bad person, not saying Trevor Connelly is, but you could still be focused on your own development and just become a sweet hockey player. There are certainly people in the NHL who we probably don't think the highest of if we were to ever meet them, but they certainly figured it out for themselves. There are certain people in the NHL who are probably the coolest dudes in the world, and we're just like, yeah, man, I'm happy to improve. Please give me all your advice all the time. I also know that there's the opposite of it, and this is unfortunately the other side. There's a lot of people who are responsible for developing players who are not doing a good job at it, and it requires everything to kind of work in balance. So you can only put so much of it on a player, and there's going to be talk about how, is he the right guy? There's going to be news articles about him and stuff like that show up over the next few years, and how well can he process through it. All of these kind of factor into a really weird, interesting case that's super hard to interpret. But in terms of just the talent and just the player, it's hard to pass on him.
Yeah. So before we kind of get to the first round here, what everything goes right, everything clicks. Like, are you looking at like a bona fide like top line winger on a good team?
Top 6 guy, yeah. I don't think a top line winger, to me, for me to call someone a first line winger, I need to see them as like the number 1 or number 2 guy on a line, regardless of who their line mates are. I don't know if Connolly's going to be like that, but I do see him possibly playing on the first line. It just depends on what the line mates are. But like a clear-cut top 6 forward who's interchangeable on both lines, absolutely. More of a play driver on the second line and more of a complementary guy on the first. But either way, like you're laughing at that. At mid-first, that's what you strive for.
All right, guys, before we continue with Sam, we talk about kind of the mid part of the first round, some of the players that he really likes, some players he would be targeting there. Just need to take a quick break. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Sam. So I need your help here. Stacking this middle first round, right? Sharks going in. We're recording this before the draft lottery, so if there is that like 1% chance that Pittsburgh moved up, I apologize. But how? Okay, like Sharks are at 14. There's a whole slew of guys here. How are you kind of ranking that like 11 through 17? Which guys are you hoping maybe if you're a Sharks fans, are you hoping maybe fall a little bit? Which guys are you kind of targeting? Who do you like in the middle?
Every player every fan wants the NHL to predictably let Berkeley Catton fall like Zach Benson did last year. That is like
the Sabres are just going to snatch him up again.
Yeah, I don't think that he gets past Buffalo. I'm wondering, but I also have thought about it, and maybe Buffalo fans, I've seen them talk. They think they need to add a defender to the pipeline. I look at the roster. I don't really agree. I think that's just a clear best player available type of situation, and you just kind of deal with the influx of talent as you know, what a problem.
No, I have too many good players. Yeah.
Yeah. If Liam Greentree's available in that range, you take him. Teddy Stiga is a top 15 caliber player. You'll probably be able to get him way later based on the way that people have been talking about him, but it sounds like he might kind of start moving up. Michael Branstad-Nugard is a very interesting player just because he's so easy. He's like the easiest projection you can find in a draft. He's the one where you just watch him, you go, yeah, everything about that will work at the pro level. Like without question, because he's a
line connector player. Like he's just everybody on his line.
Yeah.
Whatever you need, that guy can do. Like you got a guy who can go score. You need someone to pass to him. Cool, he can do that. Yeah. You need someone to kind of play some defense. Cool, I'll play defense for you. Like he is the perfect line connector.
Just a jack of all trades who's already succeeded at all of these things at the pro level. Yeah. So like if you want like a really good middle six guy. Like the type of third liner that when people look back on Stanley Cup winning teams, they're like, man, the underrated part of that team was the third line led by Michael Branstad-Nugard. Like he's one of those types of third liners. Who else is it really? Michael.
How about the defenseman? Because a lot of Sharks fans are like clamoring, like we need defense. I'm still just take the best player available because again, there's this talent, this prospect pool, right? We're still kind of growing and developing it, but like who I know this defensive class, there's a lot of questions. Everybody kind of has that flaw with them, but which of the defenders are you kind of enjoying?
I wouldn't expect Levshinov, Buium, Dickinson, or Salayev to be there, or probably Parekh, but I also think he might fall because Zane Parekh has. I don't see how NHL defenses or NHL teams watch him and go, yeah, I'm not scared about him defensively. And like NHL scouts also know that their coach will not play top 4 minutes to a guy they can't trust defensively unless they are like the best offensive and transitional guy. And Parekh also has questions in this transition game. So he might slip. That's a good one if you want the offensive guy. I 100% think Parekh is one of the best possible like mid first round swings to take because the upside is legit with him. The kid has insane vision. Personally, Adam Yurchek, he is like a top 10 caliber player who got hurt and never got to really show it. And now what happens to every time a prospect of his caliber gets hurt at that time of year, they're getting forgotten about. And they're kind of getting passed on, but that doesn't mean that he's not insane. His last game, I believe, was at the World Juniors, and it was like his game against Canada was probably like one of the 3 or 4 best defensive games I've seen from anybody else season. And you could tell it was like, oh, he's gonna come. It was one of those like he's gonna come out of the World Juniors swinging like some of those players usually do, and he just never got his chance. That might be the best pure value one because he could legitimately have an argument as the best defensive prospect in this draft.
I mean, I like him a lot too. I know it's some debate between maybe him and then Carter Yamachek, who I just profiled last week. Is 6'3", nasty right-handed defenseman that feels very Mike Greer-ish right there, where he, type of player. And I know again he maybe has some questions compared to some of the other guys, but like I like. Well, no matter what, like the Sharks are going to be a really good spot to get a really nice player here at 14, right?
Yeah, like there's going to be something falling for sure. My whole thing with this draft is there are 4 amazing players. Then there's like a tier that I think can legitimately, as I currently have it marked, although I'm in the process of changing it, 5 to 22.
Ooh.
Nobody in my eyes feels like an actual 5th overall caliber player. It's one of the weaker, like kind of top 10s. But as soon as you get out of the top 10, it's like I feel like I'm looking at a bunch of names. I'm like, you should be higher. But then I look at the names above them, and I'm like, but you're not. I don't like you more than them. But like, oh wow. So it's like a really interesting middle of the first, where a lot of guys can do. There's a lot of interesting players who could. I call them like maybes. That's like how I viewed the 2021 draft. They're maybes. This could be a draft people look back on and go, wow, that draft sucked. But like, it's one of those ones like 2017 was also not highly touted at all. I remember people talking about trading out of the 2017, going and get picks in 2018 and stuff. 2017 is more active first round players than any other draft because all those maybes ended up becoming sick. Like everybody developed right, except for the few exceptions. Like most players at least managed to hit their kind of weaker ceiling of just being an NHL role player. Others are straight up stars, many stars from that draft. Like it's a really good draft. 24 kind of reminds me of that a bit, like especially with Macklin Celebrini at number 1. He has a lot of Nico Hischier in him, not as a direct player, but comparable, but the type of top line center who really controls the pace and like really makes taking space in the middle of the ice hard defensively and really pisses off the entire opposition and how well he controls the middle of the ice going up. You've got a guy like Ivan Demidov as well, who is just like, he could be an Elias Pettersson in terms of just like, oh my God, offensively, he's second to none in this draft. Like he's insane. You got a lot of players who could be great, and so many of them are going to be available in that mid first. I think I said Liam Greentree already.
Yes.
But he's definitely one. Michael Hage is another one. I don't know if the NHL, where he's going to go in the NHL. Igor Chernysov is a weird player. He has the one-on-one skill to beat KHL players like pros in insane fashion and like, oh my God fashion. Like, again, one of those, like when you see the highlight reels, people are going to go, this kid is nuts. But then you watch him for a game and you're like, oh, after 6 shifts, he's done nothing. That's crazy. So he's a bit of an interesting one. Cole Yzerman, I don't think he'll slip too far to the teams, but I think Yzerman might slip a little bit.
But adding Celebrini and Cole Yzerman in the same draft,
yeah, That would be pretty interesting. And I have a gem personally.
Okay.
Sorry. One more defenseman as
Okay.
Alphonse Frey. This is easily the most undervalued defender in the draft. I have no
Will
idea how this.
loves him. Yes.
Yeah, we talked about him last summer. We're like, have you seen this kid yet? And we're like, yeah, man, he's insane. And then we've watched him all year, and he's just gotten better and 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 better. He's the best puck-moving offensive defenseman in the draft, outside of Buiam, in my opinion. But I think if someone said I like Frey more, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I get it. It doesn't seem like anyone else thinks that, but he is playing super well at the U18s despite the lack of production, and I think a team is going to see him and go like, yeah, okay, we should take this kid. The other one that I think is really interesting, Tijagin might fall as well. He's like a great complementary like second line guy as well. But I have a personal favorite in Nikita Artemonov. I'm not as high on him when I had him 5th overall, mostly because I had him there because for what I said earlier, like I don't think there's a clear number 5, and he was my favorite from the rest. His second half of the season was not as strong as his first. His whole team's second half of the season was not as strong as their first. There's a direct correlation as to when he started to slip off. I don't think that is a coincidence. I cannot forget the absurd performances I saw in the first half where he was single-handedly taking, I wouldn't say taking over shifts, but like always involved in the play, always doing the right thing, always creating advantages, really flipping disadvantaged situations into strong ones for his team. Everyone looked better when he was around, when they played with him. I watched a full game where he would, because Salayev was playing as well. I was like, let's just see how these two guys fit in with the team. The team came alive like no other when he was on the ice. He was such a difference maker. I've heard rumors that there are some NHL scouts who have him very, very high in the draft. I've heard rumors that there are some NHL scouts who hate him as a player and don't have interest in drafting him because they don't think he has the talent and the skill level to play his game. I disagree when it comes to players like this. So if anyone is to take him, I hope it's a team like San Jose because I'll actually give him the chances he needs and stuff like that and like the development. I mean, any team interested in him in the mid-first would obviously be doing this. He'll probably fall to the second because he's Russian. But talent-wise, if his name was like Jim Bob and he played in the USHL or something, like I don't think anybody would be arguing him outside of like the top 15 at the lowest.
All right, we'll get you out your last 2 questions. So last time I asked you who you thought was going to be the best player in the draft, not named Mac Celebrini. I'm 99% sure you said Demidov. So which player is projected to go in the top 10 are you kind of a little queasy about?
I am extremely nervous about Artem Levshunov. I have grown on him a lot over the year. When I've only released the one ranking this year. It's not really emblematic of what I'm thinking right now. I have moved Levshunov up from 22 considerably. I think he's 10. Oh, he's 10th now. Wow, look at that. So he is a top 10 prospect, even by my own consideration. But he scares me a lot. Like a lot. He's not as skilled in motion as people, as some of the scouting reports I've read said. Like I haven't seen it. I've watched a lot of games. I've seen a lot of clips sent to me from other people. It's like, I'm not seeing it there. His defensive game has fundamentals that you can see can be worked with, but he's a nightmare. He plays in an interesting system with Michigan State that's really progressive that let him pretty much abandon defensive positioning entirely to go play fourth forward. That is not going to, I mean, an NHL team theoretically can do that. And if they do it, then they might actually find a great player there. But when the NHL isn't the most famous league for drafting players to fit into the perfect role, and like the coach might just go, I don't do that, so no. Like it's that simple. And then, what's he do? He still is a talented player in his own zone in terms of starting transitions and stuff. Even when he's not entirely reliant on reckless positioning, he does a lot of stuff strong from the blue line, does stuff from being in last man back. I don't doubt him as an NHL player. His passing and motion is really crisp. Like he passes within the pace of an offense super well and always recognizes and times the passes so well. Like this will really help move a team along in terms of just getting up the ice and not like setting up fast counterattacks. He's a talented problem solver. When like complex stuff shows up in front of him, like he can solve it. But again, the hands are clunky. The hands are not like, he's not like dangling through guys, which is fine. You don't have to, but like he wants to. So that'll either get better or be refined around his game. I think he's got enough there now where I can confidently say that's without question an NHL player. He's probably not a third pairing guy, but he's one of those top 4 guys where you want him to be better and you're like, you're useful. I wonder how his pairings impact. Let me rephrase this. He could be the most impactful player on a second pairing, like a really good number 3. Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't have the right number 4, he could tank a second pairing to kind of get killed against the right competition. Like he's going to be if you're a top 4 defender, you're defending second lines usually, and sometimes first lines and really good third lines. And like people need to, there's Braden Points in the NHL. There's Nick Suzuki's. And those are not like the best players. Like I picture Artem Levshinov out there against Nathan McKinnon, and I go, oh. Wow, that's terrifying. Oh my God. He's going to get killed. Like they're superstars, man. Like they're the best players in the world. The standard is very high. So
all right.
Yeah, that's my answer for that one.
No, it makes sense. I mean, we saw Jack Thompson like first shift against Connor McDavid, and just like poor Jack Thompson. I think you're a good prospect, but man, like that is,
that's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. Sometimes it happens. It's Connor McDavid. All right. Get you out of here. And last question. Trevor Connelly goes to what pick in the draft?
Oh, man. Crap. Let's say, who's picking 11th right now?
That would be the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, it won't be the Sabres. I would say 12th.
Congratulations, Philadelphia. You just drafted Trevor Connelly.
Oh, actually, he's I can 100% see that happening. That's actually a fit that feels almost natural, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it too. So, Sam, you said, where can the people find you, buddy?
You can find me on Twitter at Sam_McGilligan. You can find my eventual rankings for the final section of the year. I'll do a post U18 one, probably not with a write-up, but just to, they're outdated. I should probably get something out there.
Yeah.
In the next couple of weeks. And then that'll be at sammcgilligan.substack.com. And then the final ranking with an actual substantial write-up will be coming out a week before the draft.
I think you should do it after the draft. That's what you do, because then you can't be wrong.
Look at
you
that.
Do the rankings after the draft.
JD, you're ahead of the game. Correct. You should transition into scouting.
100% right every time.
You can't be wrong.
Can't be wrong. That's the name of the game, is trying to be right as often as possible. Thanks, buddy. We'll chat again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Sam. Trevor Connelly's going to be an interesting player to track because, again, uber talented on the ice, but some of the red flags that do occur, and he will some teams don't care about that stuff. Some teams that will be a big no-no. So we'll see how the Sharks kind of approach this, or if they even get the chance to kind of answer that. But interesting player, again, on the ice, one super talented, such an intriguing player on the ice. But again, is the off the ice issues going to kind of hold him back? So we'll continue our draft profiles. We'll have more coming out next week as well. Make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Until tomorrow, bye, friends.